The morning sun cast long shadows across the red rocks of Kepler 442b as Dr. Kim Tae-ho packed his equipment bag. Another day of sample collection awaited him at the remote research station. He had been on this frontier planet for 8 months, now studying the strange plants and creatures that lived in its harsh environment. Tae-ho was a xenobiologist, which meant he studied alien life forms. Most people back on Earth thought his job was exciting, but the truth was quite different. Days passed slowly on this distant world. He spent most of his time alone, taking notes and running tests on boring rock samples and simple plant life. Research station was small, housing only 12 people. They were scientists, engineers, and support staff who had volunteered for this 3-year mission. Communication with Earth took 6 hours each way, making them feel truly isolated from home. Today felt different, though. Tae-ho had picked up some unusual energy readings from the Eastern Canyon yesterday. His scanner showed something that did not match any known mineral or plant signatures. It was worth investigating. He walked for 2 hours across the rocky terrain, following his scanner's beeping signals. The device led him deeper into a narrow canyon where twisted metal trees grew from cracks in the stone. These trees were one of the few complex life forms they had found on this planet, but they were still just plants. The beeping grew stronger as he rounded a bend in the canyon. Then he saw it. Something small and furry was lying motionless beside a large boulder. First, Tae-ho thought it might be a piece of debris from a crashed probe. But as he got closer, he realized this was a living creature. The animal was about the size of a house cat, but unlike any cat he had ever seen. Its fur looked like it was made of tiny crystals that caught the sunlight and threw rainbow colors. In all directions, it had 6 legs instead of 4, and its tail was long and thin with what looked like a small gem at the tip. Tae-ho knelt down carefully. The creature was breathing, but very weakly. Its crystal fur was dull and cracked in. Several places, dark blue liquid, probably blood, had dried around wounds on its side and back legs. One of its 6 legs was bent at an odd angle, clearly broken. "What are you, little one?" Tae-ho whispered. The creature's eyes opened at the sound of his voice. They were large and golden, filled with intelligence that surprised him. Most animals on this planet were simple things, barely more complex than Earth insects. But these eyes showed awareness, maybe even understanding. The creature tried to lift its head, but was too weak. It made a soft sound, like wind chimes in, a gentle breeze, and its eyes closed again. Tae-ho knew he should follow protocol. The research mission had strict rules about interfering with alien life forms. They were supposed to observe and record, nothing more. Touching or helping alien creatures could contaminate their studies or even introduce dangerous diseases. But looking at this injured animal, Tae-ho could not just walk away. His medical training kicked in before his scientific training could stop him. He had studied veterinary medicine before switching to xenobiology. Every instinct told him this creature was dying and needed help immediately. He carefully lifted the animal, surprised by how light it was despite its size. The crystal fur felt warm and smooth under his hands. He could feel the creature's heart beating rapidly and unevenly. "I'm going to help you," he said, though he doubted the animal could understand. The journey back to the research station seemed to take forever. Tae-ho moved as quickly as he could while trying not to jostle his injured passenger. The creature remained unconscious, but its breathing seemed to get a little stronger during the walk. Back at the station, Tae-ho faced his first problem. He could not take the animal to the main medical bay without alerting the other researchers. Instead, he brought it to his private quarters and set up a makeshift treatment area. He examined the wounds more carefully under proper lighting. The injuries looked like they came from some kind of weapon, not an accident or animal attack. Burn marks suggested energy weapons. The cuts were too clean to be natural. This creature had been in a fight. Tae-ho cleaned the wounds with antiseptic and found that human medical supplies worked surprisingly well. The creature's biology was different from Earth animals, but not as different as he had expected. Its blood clotted normally with human coagulants. Its broken leg responded well to a simple splint. The hardest part was figuring out what to feed it. Tahoe tried various combinations of nutrients and supplements from the station's medical supplies. After several failed attempts, he discovered that a mixture of glucose, amino acids, and certain minerals made the creature perk up noticeably. Named the creature Nabi, which meant butterfly in Korean. The name seemed fitting because of how the crystal fur caught and reflected light like butterfly wings. Over the next few days, Nabi grew stronger. The creature was remarkably intelligent, learning to communicate basic needs through sounds and gestures. It seemed to understand that Tahoe was helping and showed clear signs of gratitude and affection. Nabi followed Tahoe around his quarters like a loyal pet. But there was something more than animal intelligence in those golden eyes. Sometimes, Tahoe caught the creature watching him with an expression that seemed almost human-like in its thoughtfulness. The other researchers remained unaware of his secret patient. Tahoe made excuses for spending more time in his quarters and less time in the common areas. He told his colleagues he was working on a complex data analysis project that required concentration. After a week, Nabi's crystal fur began to regain its brilliant shine. The creature could walk normally again, though it still favored the previously broken leg. Its appetite had returned, and it seemed genuinely happy in Tahoe's company. But Tahoe noticed strange things too. Sometimes Nabi's fur would glow softly in the dark, especially when the creature was content or excited. The gem-like tip of its tail would pulse with different colors that seemed to match its moods. Red for excitement, blue for calm, purple for what looked like sadness or worry. Most surprisingly, Nabi seemed to be trying to communicate complex ideas. It would arrange small objects in patterns, draw shapes in spilled water, and make elaborate series of musical sounds that felt almost like language. One evening, as Tahoe was updating his private research notes, Nabi approached him with something. In its mouth, the creature dropped a small, perfectly cut gemstone at his feet. The stone was unlike anything found naturally on this planet. "Where did you get this, Nabi?" Tahoe asked. Nabi looked at him with those intelligent golden eyes and made a sound like distant singing. Then it touched the gemstone with its tail tip. Both objects glowed with the same soft light. For the first time, Tahoe wondered if he had rescued something far more important than a simple alien animal. But he had no idea that his act of compassion had just changed the course of galactic history. 3 weeks after finding Nabi, Tahoe woke up to alarms screaming throughout the research station. Red emergency lights flashed in his quarters as he jumped out of bed. Nabi, who had been sleeping on a soft blanket nearby, stood up with its crystal fur glowing bright white. The creature made worried chirping sounds and pressed close to Tahoe's leg. Something was wrong. Very wrong. Tahoe grabbed his clothes and ran to the main control room. The other researchers were already there, staring at the large display screens with shocked faces. Station Commander Park Ji-woo was shouting orders into his communication device. "What's happening?" Tahoe asked. Dr. Lee Soo-jin, the team's physicist, pointed at the main screen with a shaking hand. Ships. Huge ships. They just appeared out of nowhere. Tahoe looked at the screen and felt his stomach drop. Massive vessels hung in space above their planet like floating cities. They were unlike anything humans had ever built. The ships were smooth and curved, made from what looked like polished stone and metal. They glowed with soft purple light and were easily 10 times larger than Earth's biggest space stations. "How many?" Commander Park asked. 15 that we can see," Soo-jin replied. "Maybe more behind the planet. Our sensors are going crazy. The energy readings are off the charts." Tahoe felt Nabi trembling against his leg. He looked down and saw the creature's golden eyes were wide with what looked like fear and excitement mixed together. Its tail gem was pulsing rapidly between purple and gold colors. "They're scanning us," reported Kim Min-soo from the communications station. "Multiple active sensor sweeps. They know exactly where we are." "Any response to our signals?" Commander Park asked. "Nothing. They're not answering any of our communications." Suddenly, the largest ship began to move. It descended slowly through, the atmosphere growing bigger and more impressive as it got closer. The ship was beautiful in a terrifying way, like a mountain that had learned to fly. It's landing, Sujin whispered. 2 kilometers from the station. The ground shook as the massive vessel touched down. Trees bent away from the ship as if blown by invisible wind. Animals fled in all directions. The very air seemed to hum with. Power Tahoe felt Nabi tugging at his pants leg. The creature was making urgent sounds and pointing toward the door with one of its 6 legs. It wanted to go outside, toward the landed ship. No, Nabi, Tahoe whispered. It's dangerous. But Nabi was becoming more agitated. Its crystal fur was now glowing so brightly that other researchers started to notice. Tahoe Commander Park said slowly, "What is that thing?" Before Tahoe could answer, new alarms began sounding. The external cameras showed figures moving from the landed ship toward the research station. They were humanoid, but clearly not human. Tall and graceful, they seemed to glide rather than walk. They wore flowing robes that moved like liquid metal. "They're coming here," Minsu said. "Weapons?" Park asked. "I don't see any. But with their technology, they might not need weapons we can recognize." Nabi suddenly broke free from Tahoe's grasp and ran toward the station's exit. Its small legs moved faster than Tahoe had ever seen before. "Nabi, no?" Tahoe chased after the creature. He caught up with Nabi at the main airlock. The creature was standing on its back legs, pressing its front paws against the door controls. It looked back at Tahoe with pleading golden eyes and made sounds that were almost like words. "You want to go out there?" Tahoe asked. "You know them, don't you?" Nabi nodded. Actually nodded like a human would. Before Tahoe could process this fully, the airlock door opened on its own. The alien visitors had somehow taken control of the station's systems. A group of 6 aliens entered the airlock. They were magnificent and terrifying at the same time. Each one was nearly 3 meters tall, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow from within. Their faces were similar to humans but more angular, with large eyes that held depths of intelligence and power. They wore crowns or headpieces made from the same crystal material as Nabi's fur. The leader of the group was clearly female and obviously important. Her robes were more elaborate, her crown more complex. She carried herself with the bearing of someone used to absolute authority. When she saw Nabi, her expression changed from stern determination to shock, and then to overwhelming relief. She said something in a musical language that sounded like wind through crystal caves. Nabi responded with excited chirping and ran to her. The alien leader knelt down, which was still tall enough to be at eye level with Tahoe. She gathered Nabi in her arms, and both of them began to glow with the same soft light. She examined the creature carefully, running her hands over the areas where Tahoe had treated the injuries. Then she looked directly at Tahoe. Her eyes were the same golden color as Nabi's, but larger and filled with an intelligence that made Tahoe feel like a child. When she spoke, her voice was like music, but somehow Tahoe could understand the meaning, even though he did not know the words. "You are the one who healed her." It was not a question. Somehow she knew. "Yes," Tahoe managed to say she was hurt. "I couldn't just leave her." The alien leader stood up, still holding Nabi. She spoke to her companions in their musical language. One of them, who seemed to be some kind of advisor, responded with concern in his voice. She turned back to Tahoe. "I am Queen Mother Yunsora of the Astral Dominion. This child you call Nabi is my daughter, Princess Hejin." Tahoe's mind reeled. Nabi was not just an intelligent animal. She was an alien princess. God, and he had been keeping her as a pet for 3 weeks. I didn't know," he stammered. "She was dying. I just wanted to help." Queen Mother Sora studied him for a long moment. Her expression was unreadable. Behind her, more aliens had entered the station. Human researchers were backing away. Nervously, "You saved her life when our own healers could not," Sora said. "Our medicine failed against the poison that nearly killed her. Yet your primitive technique succeeded." Primitive. The word stung, but Tahoe could not argue with it. Compared to beings who could build ships that traveled between stars, human medicine probably did seem primitive. "In our culture," Sora continued, "one who saves a royal child creates an unbreakable bond. You have claimed responsibility for her life. This makes you part of our family. Part of your family." Tahoe repeated. Sora nodded. "The bond goes both ways." She is now connected to you, and you to her, and through her to me. Oh. Princess Hyjin, still in her small animal form, looked up at Taeho and made happy chirping sounds. She seemed pleased by this development. But there is more, Sora said. Your care for her shows qualities we value highly: compassion, skill, dedication. These are the marks of a worthy mate. Mate. Taeho's voice cracked. You have proven yourself suitable to join the royal line. One propose a formal union between us. The other researchers, who had been listening in stunned silence, gasped. Commander Park looked like he might faint. Taeho stared at the alien queen, trying to process what she had just said. She was proposing marriage. To him, a simple scientist who lived in a tiny research station millions of miles from Earth. We just met, he said, weakly. Sora tilted her head, looking puzzled. You have been caring for my daughter for many days. You have shown your worthiness through actions, not words. What more courtship is needed? Behind her, the other aliens were nodding, as if this all made perfect sense. Taeho realized that he had stumbled into something much bigger than a simple rescue. His act of kindness toward one injured creature had apparently just led to a marriage proposal from an alien queen, and judging by the size of the fleet outside, saying no might not be an option. The next morning, Taeho woke up in what could only be described as a palace. The aliens had moved him from the research station to their main ship overnight. His small quarters had been replaced by a room larger than the entire station's common area. Everything was made from smooth, glowing materials that felt warm to the touch. The walls showed moving pictures of beautiful alien landscapes. A soft, musical sound filled the air like a gentle breeze through wind chimes. Taeho sat on the edge of what he guessed was a bed, though it felt more like sleeping on a cloud. He was wearing clothes that the aliens had given him, flowing robes similar to theirs, but in human proportions. The fabric was incredibly soft and seemed to adjust its temperature automatically. A gentle chime sounded, and part of the wall became transparent. Princess Hyjin entered, but she no longer looked like the small creature he had rescued. She had transformed into her true form, a teenage girl, about 16 years old, with the same golden eyes and crystal-like hair that sparkled in the light. Good morning, Taeho, she said in perfect Korean. Did you sleep well? You can talk, he said, still amazed. I mean, really talk? Hyjin smiled. I could always talk. But I was too weak before, and besides, I wanted to learn about you first. Humans are very interesting. She sat down across from him on a chair that seemed to grow from the floor. Mother is very excited about the bonding ceremony. She has been planning it all night, bonding ceremony. Your wedding, Hyjin explained, as if it were obvious. In our culture, when someone saves a royal child, it creates a sacred bond. The savior becomes part of the royal family, usually through marriage to a parent or sibling. Taeho rubbed his temples. But I was just helping. I didn't know you were royalty. I didn't know you were even intelligent. That makes it even more meaningful, Hyjin said. You helped me because it was right, not because you wanted something in return. Mother says this proves you have a pure heart. Before Taeho could respond, another part of the wall became transparent. Queen Mother Sora entered, followed by several attendants carrying various objects. Good morning, my intended, Sora said warmly. I trust you rested well in your new quarters. Queen Mother, about this marriage, ... Please, call me Sora. We are to be family. She gestured to her attendants, who began arranging objects around the room. I have brought gifts to show my intentions. The gifts were impressive and terrifying. A holographic display showed an entire star system, 5 planets orbiting a bright yellow sun. This system is yours, Sora said casually. The planets are rich in minerals and have pleasant climates, perfect for raising our future children. Ho stared at the display. You're giving me planets? Of course. A proper courtship gift should be substantial. Sora waved her hand, and another display appeared. This one showed massive fleets of ships, and here is your personal navy. Only 3,000 ships to start, but we can expand it after our bonding. 3,000 ships, Taeho repeated weakly. Mother, Hyjin said gently. I think human courtship customs are different. Sora looked puzzled. Different how?
Ow.
What gifts do human males prefer? Gold? Jewels? We have entire worlds made of precious metals. It's not about gifts, Taeho tried to explain. Humans usually get to know each other first. We date, we spend time together. How we learn about each other's personalities and interests. But I already know about your personality, Sora said. You're kind, intelligent, and skilled at healing. You risked breaking your own people's rules to save my daughter. What more do I need to know? An attendant approached and whispered something. In Sora's ear, her expression became serious. There is news from the Galactic Council, she announced. Word of our potential union has spread. Several other powers are concerned.
Ow.
Concerned how? Taeho asked. Some see this as an opportunity to gain favor with the Astral Dominion by offering their own marriage proposals. Others view humans as a potential threat if we ally with you. Sora's eyes hardened. The Rixen Empire has declared that they will not recognize any union between our species. What does that mean? It means they might try to stop our wedding, possibly with force. Taeho felt dizzy. This is insane. 3 weeks ago, I was studying plants. Now I'm apparently starting an interstellar war. You're not starting anything, Sora said firmly. You showed compassion to an injured child. The fault lies with those who would punish such kindness. Dr. Park Minho, Taeho's research partner, was brought into the room by alien guards. He looked overwhelmed, but determined. We need to talk, Minho said. Earth Command has been trying to reach you. They're sending Ambassador Lee Dae-yoon to negotiate. Negotiate what? Everything. Trade agreements, territorial boundaries, military alliances. Your personal situation has become a diplomatic crisis. Half the governments on Earth want to use this opportunity to advance humanity's position in the galaxy. The other half want to disavow you completely to avoid getting involved in alien politics. Sora listened to this with growing anger. They would abandon one of their own after he performed such a noble act? Politics is complicated, Minho said carefully. Not in the Astral Dominion, Sora replied coldly. We protect our family members. All of them. She turned to Taeho. This is why you need our protection. Your own species does not value you properly. That's not fair, Taeho protested. They're just scared. Humans have never dealt with anything like this before. Then, perhaps it is time they learned, Sora said. Through our union, humanity will gain the protection and guidance of the Astral Dominion. Your people will benefit greatly. Hajin had been quiet during this exchange, but now she spoke up. Mother, perhaps we should slow down. Taeho seems overwhelmed? Overwhelmed? Sora looked genuinely confused. By good fortune? By the opportunity to unite to civilizations? By having his entire life changed without his consent? Hyjin said gently. Sora paused, considering this. But he gave his consent when he healed you. The bond was formed then. He didn't know that? Hyjin pointed out. Ignorance of customs does not negate their power, Sora said. But her tone was less certain now. An alarm sounded throughout the ship. An officer rushed in and spoke urgently to Sora in their musical language. Her expression darkened. Is it? Taeho asked. Rixen ships have entered the system. They demand we release you and leave immediately. Sora's voice was dangerously calm. They claim humans are under their protection now, are they? No. But they hope to force the issue by threatening us. Sora stood up, suddenly looking every inch the powerful queen she was. They underestimate both human value and astral resolve. She turned to Taeho. I had hoped we could continue our courtship in peace, but it appears we must prove our commitment to each other through trial by fire. What does that mean? It means, my intended, that you are about to see what it truly means to be part of the astral royal family. We protect what is ours no matter the cost. As Sora strode from the room to deal with the crisis, Taeho realized that his simple act of kindness had not just changed his own life. It had set forces in motion that could reshape the entire galaxy, and he was right in the middle of it all. Ambassador Lee Dae-yoon arrived on the astral flagship 3 days later, looking like she had not slept in a week. Her usually perfect diplomatic appearance was rumpled, and her eyes showed the strain of dealing with a crisis no human had ever faced before. Tejo met her in what Sora called the informal receiving chamber, though it was larger than most Earth government buildings. The walls displayed real-time images of the space around them, showing dozens of alien ships from different civilizations all positioning themselves around the planet. Dr. Kim, Dayun said, using his formal title, "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I saved an injured animal," Tejo replied. "At least that's what I thought I was doing." That injured animal was the heir to one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Now, every major civilization is either trying to court humanity's favor or threatening to destroy us. Dayun sat down heavily in one of the alien chairs. "We've received 47 official diplomatic communications in the past 72 hours. "What kind of communications?" "Marriage proposals, mostly. Apparently, half the galaxy thinks that if the Astral Dominion can ally with humanity through marriage, so can they. The Zelix Consortium offered to make you the husband of their trade, Princess. The Crystal Collective wants to merge your consciousness with their Hive Queen. The Void Hunters offered to make you their Battle King, whatever that means." Tejo felt sick, and the threats. "The Rixen Empire claims that humanity belongs in their sphere of influence, not the Astral Dominions. They say any marriage between you and Queen Mother Sora would be an act of war against them. Federation agrees with them. So do the Shadow Clans. How many ships do they have out there?" "According to our accounts, about 6,000. From 12 different civilizations." Tejo looked out at the display showing the space around them. What had seemed like a lot of ships before now looked tiny compared to the massive fleets gathering. "In the system? And how many ships does the Astral Dominion have?" "Here, about 300. But Queen Mother Sora doesn't seem worried." Dayun rubbed her temples. "She keeps saying that quality matters more than quantity." Princess Hajin entered the chamber, moving with the grace that seemed natural to her people. She had been helping translate between humans and astral officials, trying to bridge the cultural gap that kept making everything more complicated. Ambassador Li Hijin said politely, "Mother would like to speak with you about the defense." "Arrangements? Defense arrangements?" "The Astral Dominion has declared this system to be under royal protection. Anyone who attacks will face the full might of our military." Hajin looked troubled. "Mother is very angry about the threats against Tahoe. She considers them personal insults." Yun turned to Tahoe. "We need to discuss your options." "What options?" "Earth Command has given me authority to negotiate several possible solutions. First, you could renounce any claim to royal status and return to Earth immediately. The Astral Dominion might accept this as a way to avoid war. And the second option, you could go through with the marriage but agree to certain limitations. No military alliance between Earth and the Astral Dominion. No sharing of technology. Basically, keep the personal and political aspects separate." "What does Sora think about these options?" Hajin looked uncomfortable. "Mother says that anyone who would abandon their family member to avoid political inconvenience is not worthy of alliance anyway. And she says that trying to separate personal bonds from political realities shows a fundamental misunderstanding of how galactic civilization works." "In other words, she's rejected both options," Dayun concluded. "Not rejected. She simply sees them as impossible. In her view, Dayun is already part of our family. The bond exists whether Earth recognizes it or not." An astral officer entered and spoke quickly to Hajin in their musical language. Her expression became worried. "What is it?" Tejo asked. "The Rixen Empire has issued an ultimatum. They want you transferred to their custody within 6 hours, or they will begin attacking astral ships." "And what did your mother say?" "They are welcome to try." Dayun stood up quickly. "This is escalating too fast. We need to find a peaceful solution." "There is one," Hajin said quietly. "But you will not like it." "What?" "Tejo could prove his worth to the galaxy. If he demonstrates that humanity offers something valuable, something that justifies the political complications, then the other civilizations might accept the Union." "How would I do that?" "By solving a problem that no one else can solve. By showing that human abilities are unique and necessary. Before anyone could ask what she meant, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The wall displays showed Rixen warships moving toward the astral fleet in attack formation. Sora's voice echoed through the ship's communication system, speaking in calm, measured tones that somehow made her words more frightening than shouting. Would have been, attention all vessels in this system. Any attack on astral ships or personnel will be considered an act of war against the astral dominion. We will respond with appropriate force. Appropriate force? Dayun asked. Mother commands. The Fifth Royal Fleet, Hyjin explained. She has authority to call for reinforcements from anywhere in Dominion space. How many ships is that? About 50,000? Taeho felt the blood drain from his face. 50,000 ships. Because of me? Because of the principle, Hyjin corrected. The Astral Dominion does not abandon family members, ever, even if it means war. The displays showed the first exchange of weapons fire as Rixen ships fired warning shots across the bows of astral vessels. The astral ships responded by activating shields that turned them into glowing spheres of protective energy. This is insane, Dayun said. We're talking about a galactic war over a misunderstanding. It's not a misunderstanding, Sora said as she entered the chamber. She was wearing what could only be battle armor, flowing robes that somehow looked both elegant and menacing. It is a test of resolve. The galaxy is watching to see if the Astral Dominion will protect what we claim to value. Queen Mother, Dayun said formally, Earth requests that you consider a diplomatic solution. I am always willing to consider diplomacy, but I will not negotiate from a position of weakness. Sora looked at the displays showing the enemy fleets. Let them see what happens when they threaten an astral royal family member. But I'm not really a royal family member, Taeho protested. This is all based on a cultural misunderstanding. Sora turned to him with an expression that was both gentle and implacable. You became my family the moment you chose to heal my daughter, rather than follow your own people's rules. That bond exists regardless of whether you understand it or accept it. And if I refuse the marriage, then you refuse it. But you will still be under our protection. The bond cannot be broken by words. A new alarm sounded. The display showed massive distortions in space as something huge was arriving through faster-than-light travel. Reinforcements? Dayun asked hopefully. No, Sora said with satisfaction. The 7th Imperial Battle Group. My cousin has decided to join the festivities. More ships materialized in space around the planet. These were even larger than Sora's. Vessels, and there were hundreds of them. How many cousins do you have? Taeho asked weakly. Many, and they are all very protective of family honor. The communication system crackled as messages poured in from the various fleets. Most were in alien languages, but the tone was clear enough. The situation was spiraling toward a battle that could involve dozens of civilizations and thousands of ships, all because Taeho had tried to help an injured animal. There has to be another way, he said. Hyjin looked at him thoughtfully. Actually, there might be. But it would require you to trust us completely. What do you mean? There is a crisis happening in the outer territories, plague that our healers cannot cure. If you could solve it, if you could prove that human medical knowledge offers something unique, then maybe the galaxy would see the value in keeping humanity as allies rather than enemies. Sora finished, understanding immediately. A plague? Taeho asked. It affects multiple species, Hyjin explained. Millions have died, or best. Scientists are baffled. Taeho looked at the displays showing the gathering fleets, then at Sora's determined face, then at Dayun's worried expression. If I help with this plague, and if I succeed, would that be enough to end this standoff? It would prove your worth beyond question, Sora said. No one could argue that humanity lacks value if you save millions of lives. And if I fail, then we fight, Sora said simply. And we win or die as family. Taeho realized that his choice was not really about marriage or politics anymore. It was about whether he was willing to risk everything to prevent a war that could devastate the galaxy. The same compassion that had led him to help an injured creature was now calling him to help entire civilizations. All right, he said. Tell me about this plague. The journey to the plague zone took 2 days through hyperspace. Tejo spent most of that time studying data files that astral scientists had compiled about the mysterious disease. The information was both fascinating and terrifying. The plague affected 7 different alien species across 12 star systems. It began with fever and weakness, then progressed to complete system failure within days. No 2 species showed exactly the same symptoms, but the progression was always the same. Look at this, Tejo said to Hai-Jin as they reviewed the files together. The disease affects completely different biologies in similar ways. Natural diseases usually target specific biological systems. A virus that affects one species rarely affects another, especially when their biologies are very different. Tejo pulled up comparison charts. But this plague seems to find whatever is most vital in each species and attack that. We're designed, Hai-Jin said quietly. Exactly, this isn't natural. Someone created this. Sora joined them in the medical bay where they had been working. She had been coordinating with other astral fleets, managing the political crisis while they traveled to the plague zone. Any progress? She asked. I think this plague is artificial, Tejo explained. It's too perfectly adapted to different species to be natural. A weapon? That's my guess. But whoever made it lost control of it. Now it's spreading beyond whatever targets they originally intended. Sora's expression darkened. Using disease as a weapon is forbidden by galactic law. If someone has done this, we'll deal with the politics later, Tejo said. Right now, we need to stop people from dying. They arrived at Kepler 438c, a world that had been one of the first hit by the plague. The planet's population of 12 million had been reduced to 3 million in just 2 months. The survivors were housed in quarantine facilities, cared for by medical teams in protective suits. The astral medical facility was impressive. A floating city with laboratories and hospitals that put Earth's best medical centers to shame. Even with all their advanced technology, the astral healers were losing the battle against the plague. Dr. Yoon Jae-ho, the chief astral physician, met them at the facility's landing bay. He was tall and elegant like all astrals, but his usual calm confidence was replaced by exhaustion and frustration. Queen Mother, he said, bowing formally. I wish I had better news to report. What is the current situation? Sora asked. We lost 47 more patients yesterday. The disease continues to adapt faster than we can develop treatments. Every time we think we understand it, it changes. Show me everything, Tejo said. For the next 6 hours, Tejo toured the medical facility. He examined patients, studied tissue samples, and reviewed treatment records. Astral medical technology was incredible. Machines that could analyze cells at the molecular level, treatments that could repair damage in real time, medicines that seemed like magic compared to human drugs. But none of it was working. Your technology is amazing, Tejo told Dr. Yoon, but I think that might be part of the problem. How so? You're treating this like a natural disease. You're trying to understand its biology, predict its behavior, create targeted treatments. But if this is artificial, if it was designed, then it might be designed to defeat exactly those approaches. What do you suggest? Tejo was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Sometimes the best solutions are the simplest ones. Instead of fighting the disease with complex treatments, what if we gave the body what it needs to fight the disease itself? Boost immune responses? We tried that. The plague adapts to immune system attacks, not immune responses. Basic, biological support. The disease attacks whatever each species needs most to survive. So what if we give them more of those basic needs than the disease can take away? Dr. Yoon looked skeptical. Basic biological support? That seems too simple. Let me try something. What do you have to lose? Tejo spent the next day developing a treatment protocol that seemed almost primitive compared to astral medicine. Instead of targeted molecular therapies, he focused on basic life support. Nutrition, hydration, oxygen, temperature regulation, waste removal. The fundamental processes that every living thing needed. but he combined these basic approaches with careful monitoring and adjustment. When the plague attacked one system, he supported that system more. When it adapted and attacked another system, he shifted support there. It's like playing a game, he explained to Hai-Jin. The plague tries to overwhelm one biological function. I make that function stronger. It switches to a different function, so I switch my support too. Can you keep up with it? But humans are good at adapting quickly to changing situations. It's one of our strongest traits. The first patient they tried the new treatment on was a young Rixen male who had been given up for lost. The plague had attacked his respiratory system, and even with astral breathing assistance, he was failing. Taeho started with the simplest possible intervention, adjusting the gas mixture the patient was breathing, adding supplements to his IV fluids, and monitoring dozens of basic biological markers. For the first day, nothing happened. The patient continued to decline. On the second day, the plague shifted its attack to the patient's digestive system. Immediately, Taeho changed the treatment, providing different nutrients directly into the bloodstream and supporting digestive function. The plague adapted again, attacking the nervous system. Taeho was ready, providing neural support in brain. Chemistry stabilization. By the fourth day, something remarkable happened. The patient's own immune system, no longer overwhelmed by the plague's attacks on basic life functions, began to recognize and fight the disease itself. It's working, Dr. Yoon said in amazement. His body is actually beating the plague. The key was not trying to be smarter than the disease, Taeho explained, just more persistent. The plague can adapt quickly, but it takes energy to adapt. If you make it keep adapting while supporting the patient's basic functions, eventually, it exhausts itself. Word of the breakthrough spread quickly through the medical facility. Within hours, Taeho was treating dozens of patients using his simple but effective approach. The success rate was not perfect, but it was far better than anything the astral physicians had achieved. Sora arrived at the medical bay as Taeho was finishing his rounds. She had been dealing with the political situation, managing communications. With the various fleets still gathered around Kepler 442b, the galaxy is watching, she told him. News of your success here is spreading to every civilization. Even our enemies are paying attention. How are they reacting? Mixed responses. Some are impressed, others are suspicious. The Rixen Empire claims that you must have created the plague yourself to make humans look heroic by curing it. That's ridiculous. Of course it is. But politics is rarely about truth. Sora looked at the patients Taeho had saved. However, results are harder to argue with than theories. Dr. Yoon approached them with a datapad. We need to discuss expanding the treatment program. There are millions of patients across 12 systems. Even working around the clock, Dr. Kim cannot treat everyone personally. Then we train others, Taeho said. The technique is not complicated, just requires patience and constant attention to changing symptoms. Will it work if others try to use it? It should. The principles are sound, but ... Double quotes Taeho hesitated. But what it requires a certain mindset. You have to be willing to react quickly to unexpected changes. You have to think creatively when standard approaches fail. You have to care more about results than about following established procedures. Sora smiled. In other words, it requires thinking like a human. Maybe. Or maybe it just requires thinking like someone who refuses to give up. Approach. Teams of doctors spread out across the plague zone, applying his methods to thousands of patients. The results were remarkable. The plague, which had seemed unstoppable, began to retreat. Patient after patient recovered. Entire hospital wards that had been full of dying patients were discharged. But more importantly, the political situation began to change too. The Rixen Empire has withdrawn its ultimatum, Sora reported during one of their daily briefings. He cannot argue that humanity lacks value when human methods are saving millions of their citizens. What about the other civilizations? Similar responses. The Crystal Collective has formally requested a medical exchange program with humanity. The Void Hunters want to hire human physicians for their military. Even the Iron Federation has stopped making threats. Hai-Jin, who had been helping coordinate the medical efforts, looked pleased but tired. More importantly, People are starting to see this as proof that different civilizations can work together. Human creativity combined with astral resources, an organization has achieved what neither could accomplish alone. Tejo felt a weight lifting from his shoulders that he had not realized was there. So we prevented the war? You prevented the war, Sora corrected, by proving that humanity deserves a place among the galactic powers. In our marriage? Sora's expression became gentle but serious. That is still your choice to make. But now it is truly a choice, not a political necessity. For the first time since this all began, Tejo realized he could actually consider the question on its own merits. Was he ready to marry an alien queen and become part of a galactic royal family? The answer surprised him with its clarity. Sora, he said, I think we need to talk about what kind of future we want to build together. 3 months later, Tejo stood in the most beautiful garden he had ever seen. The wedding ceremony was being held on Astral Prime, the capital world of the Astral Dominion. The garden floated in space above the planet, enclosed in a transparent dome net offered views of both the world below and the stars above. Representatives from 47 different civilizations had come to witness the ceremony. Even former enemies like the Rixen Empire had sent diplomatic delegations. The plague crisis had changed everything, turning a potential war into an opportunity for unprecedented cooperation. Asked Dr. Park Min-ho, who was serving as Tejo's best man. Terrified, Tejo admitted. But not about Sora. About everything else. I'm about to become the bridge between humanity and galactic civilization. That's a lot of responsibility. Min-ho adjusted Tejo's formal robes, which were a careful blend of human and astral styles. You've been handling impossible responsibility. For months now, I think you're ready. Ambassador Lee Do-yoon approached them, looking much more relaxed than she had during the crisis. The ceremony is about to begin. Are you ready? As ready as anyone can be for something like this? The wedding itself was unlike anything in human tradition. Astral ceremonies focused on the joining of families and civilizations, not just individuals. Sora had worked with human diplomats to create a ritual that honored both cultures. The ceremony began with representatives of both species, presenting gifts that symbolized what each brought to the Union. Humanity offered medical knowledge, scientific curiosity, and what the Astrals called adaptive creativity. The Astral Dominion offered protection, advanced technology, and access to galactic civilization. Then Sora and Tejo spoke their vows. Yoon Sora, Queen Mother of the Astral Dominion. Take Kim Tejo not just as my partner, but as a bridge between our peoples. Sora said in a voice that carried clearly through the garden. Through this union, I pledge that the Astral Dominion will protect and nurture humanity as we grow into our place among the stars. Tejo's voice was less steady, but his words were just as meaningful. I, Kim Tejo, take Yoon Sora not just as my wife, but as my guide into a larger universe. Through this union, I pledge that humanity will share our unique gifts with galactic civilization, and that we will learn from all who would teach us. The formal exchange of vows was followed by something more personal. Sora and Tejo had written private promises to each other, words meant only for them. I promise to be patient as you learn our ways, Sora said quietly, and to learn from your different perspective. I promise to be brave enough for the responsibilities we're taking on. Tejo replied, and to never forget that our love started with simple kindness. Princess Haijin, now serving as both translator and ceremonial witness, smiled as she watched. Her mother and the man who had saved her life pledged themselves to each other and to the future of two civilizations. The celebration that followed lasted 3 days and included traditions from dozens of different cultures. There were human dances, and astral light songs, Rixen poetry, and crystal collective harmonics. For the first time in galactic history, representatives of traditionally hostile civilizations celebrated together, but the real work began after the celebration ended. Tejo attained himself with a new title, First Ambassador of Humanity to the Galactic Council. It was a position that had never existed before, created specifically to give humanity a voice in galactic affairs. His first official act was to propose the creation of an interspecies Medical exchange program. The success with the plague had proven that different species could combine their knowledge to achieve results impossible for any single civilization. The plague taught us something important, Tejo told the assembled representatives. Species has developed unique solutions to the challenges of life. Humans approach problems differently than astrals, who approach them differently than Rixons or crystals or any other species. But when we combine our different approaches, we can solve problems that defeat any of us alone. The proposal was approved unanimously. The first time in Galactic Council history that every civilization agreed on anything. Over the following months, the program expanded beyond medicine. Human engineers worked with astral architects to design better cities. Rixon military strategists learned from human adaptability while teaching humans about large-scale logistics. Crystal collective hive minds shared their computational methods with human scientists who offered individual creativity in return. But the most important changes were smaller and more personal. Tahu and Sora's marriage became a model for how different cultures could respect each other while building something new together. They maintained separate customs when those were important to them, but created new traditions that honored both their backgrounds. Their home on Astral Prime became a gathering place for diplomats, scientists, and anyone working on interspecies cooperation. The gardens that Sora loved were filled with plants from dozens of worlds, tended by both human and alien botanists working together. Hai-Jin, now fully grown and serving as an ambassador herself, often joke,